So yeah, I am a non-binary Black femme. I guess I'll start with when I learned I was queer. Um, I lived a pretty heteronormative life up until about 2015, 2016, when I caught feelings for one of my best friends. And it was kind of a life-changing experience. I was able to learn more about my identity than I didn't think was capable. I was probably like 22 years old, and I had lived my whole life being heteronormative just because I was raised very Catholic. You know, I have a Latina mother who took me to church every single Sunday. So I knew about the gays. And I had no issue with gay people. And I would constantly like fight people who, not like actually fight, but I would constantly get in arguments with people in my congregation about like gay people. But I never thought it could be me until I had all these like dreams about my friend. And then I don't know, I guess I was just very curious about these feelings that I had usually only felt for like folks who identified as a man, or like cis het men. So then I just acted on them, and it was somewhat reciprocated. It's a long story, but we're still really great friends, and I still love this human so much. And you know, they definitely were a big part of me just feeling comfortable with exploring other parts of myself that had just been so quiet and silenced. Because when I think back, I started to do some like, you know, talking to my inner child and like having these conversations and like remembering moments where I had felt attracted or drawn to people who weren't men, and realizing like, oh, those feelings. Yes, those were valid feelings. I had just been trained to like silence that or think that it was wrong. So I just hadn't really let myself be free in that feeling. So I think I was thinking of life as very binary. You know, I started to identify as bisexual, two attractions to two different sexes, you know. So still being in this very like binary mindset because I just didn't understand the spectrum of it all or like the fluidness of it all. So then there wasn't an option for non-binary. Like no one was talking about it when I was 22, 23. This was in like 2016, 2015. No one had that vocabulary. And it wasn't until, I can't even remember when. I think it just started to come out more. People just started to name it like, oh, there are other options. Like gender is a spectrum. I think when I learned that my sexuality was more of this like spectrum, I think I identified as fluid for so long, and I still kind of do. I was like, you know, I can't really be labeled. I'm just like airy and watery and I'm just all over the place, which is okay. So I learned that about my sexuality, and then it started to spill onto my gender identity. Like, oh, I feel like masculine sometimes, or I feel like not a woman sometimes, or like I feel just kind of like my own energy and I don't need to label it. So I came out as non-binary. I guess I learned that I was non-binary as I started to just learn more about gender diversity. I didn't think that was an option for me for the longest time. And I, felt very compelled to hold space for trans people. And then I guess the more that I kind of just sat with what gender meant, the more I started to realize that I was this like agender, gender neutral person. And and then once, I think that happened in like 2019, and 2020 was kind of a crazy year. There wasn't a lot of interacting with people, but I knew I had to come out. It was starting to become very painful to be non-binary and not have people that I cared and loved about know that about me. So I think what really kind of lit the fire underneath me was like the murder of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Tony McDade. Once the Black Lives Matter movement really hit in 2020, I just couldn't stand not being my most liberated Black self. I knew that I had to start making the move to tell people, even though it felt really uncomfortable for me, and even though I was really scared to do it, because rejection. People still don't really understand what non-binary means, especially as someone who presents as a femme person. I don't think that people understand the difference between gender expression and gender identity yet. And so it's kind of exhausting to often be in the position to have to explain those things to people. But I'm actually really proud of my dad. My dad is the one who asked me if I was trans. He ended up seeing something that I said on social media, and he asked me why I was talking about, he asked me why I was advocating for trans lives. And it turned into this long conversation, and I just ended up telling him I was non-binary. And he really is the only person in my family who understands that. I still have lots of issues or other family members still have lots of issues and are still challenging with, my other family members are still not there yet. They just aren't there yet. Like my dad he has a gold star for understanding my identity. The way that I want to present myself are these socially conceptualized ideas of what's feminine and what's masculine. So I think as a creative person, I find a lot of freedom in being able to change up my gender expression, but still be this very neutral being. I'm just pure energy that wears all these different costumes because glitter is fun and jewels are fun and crystals are fun and clothes are fun, fashion is fun. So just being able to explore all of that and still be true to who I am has been so empowering.